Hey, Wayne Fox. I recently did a long video about copyright law and how it applies to photographers. And unfortunately, the important part was quite a ways into the video, and I'm guessing most people didn't make it that far. It's a pretty boring subject. So I decided to do another video, and I've got news for you. Even though you have some copyright protection, if you find somebody that's infringing on your copyrights, unless you've done one important step, which very few photographers do, you probably have little to no chance of winning a case in court, unless you happen to have somebody infringed in a fairly egregious way and it's pretty obvious that they made a lot of money. So I thought I'd do a quick video about that important step, why it's important and why you have to do it. And this prefaces a video on how to actually register your photographs with the Copyright Office. So hopefully after you watch this, you'll want to watch that one because that's actually the step that you've got to take care of. Let's talk about that a little bit more.
First, I need to give a big disclaimer. I am not a lawyer, and I am not offering any legal advice. Everything I'm quoting today, all this information comes from publications of the U.S. Copyright Office itself. And my main point is to make sure everybody understands what you gain by registering your photographs with the U.S. Copyright Office and how important that step is and what you stand to lose if you fail to take that step. This is actually a really big deal. And to make that clear, let me just read a few things from the Copyright Compendium, which is a 1,200-page document written by the Copyright Office to help people understand the copyright law. It says, although registration is not required for a work to be protected by copyright, we've learned that from the other video if you watched it, registration is a prerequisite to filing a lawsuit for copyright infringement involving U.S. work. And this is what I always thought. If I found somebody copying my photograph, all I had to do was register the photograph and then I could take them to court. And that's true technically. But let's read on. Although registration may be made at any time before copyright expires or any time before bringing infringement action in federal court, as discussed in Section 202, a registration is a prerequisite for seeking statutory damages and attorney fees in an infringement action. Now, that's a pretty important point that we really need to understand. And it goes on and says, to pursue these remedies, meaning statutory damages and attorney fees, an unpublished work must be registered before the infringement occurs, while a published work must be registered within 3 months after publication or before the infringement occurs. And the critical point in both of those conditions is before the infringement occurs. So what this means, if you fail to register within 3 months of first publishing the image or before any infringement occurs, you can only seek actual damages. This is a big deal because with actual damages, you have to prove how much you lost or how much revenue they gained by using your copyright images. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know how you can prove how much revenue a magazine advertisement gained for a company's revenue if they steal your images. There's a lot of times there's just really no correlation between the use of the image and what the infringer gained from it. You might be able to prove that your normal fee for such a use is this much, and that would possibly be money you could collect. But a lot of times it's just really hard to collect anything. And of course, the other problem is you can collect no attorney fees on top of that. So you have to make sure that your settlement is large enough to pay for those. And in fact, if for some reason the court rules against you, you still have to pay for those out of your own pocket. Many infringements, it is impossible to really prove significant damages. So let's talk about the other condition. If you do register within 3 months of publishing the image or before any infringement occurs, you can choose to pursue actual damages. So in case it's something that's obviously a lot of value and you can prove it, you can still pursue actual damages, or you can choose to pursue statutory damages. Now, statutory damages are pretty important because statutory damages are set by the law itself. They're inside the copyright law. They don't have to be justified with any actual monetary damages. So you don't have to prove that you lost money or that they made money. You just have to prove that they stole your image and it benefited them in some way. or harmed you in some way. And many factors go into the determination of the final amount, including the worth of the infringer and the seriousness of the infringement. But the bottom line is the normal damage amounts are $750 minimum to $30,000 maximum per infringement. This means unless there's some other circumstance, the minimum that you can be awarded is $750 plus your attorney fees. But you could also be awarded as much as $30,000 because the court might decide it needs to be punitive. And there are many cases where the amount is much higher than $750. And this is per infringement. So let's say they put 2 or 3 of your images on their website. Well, if you win all 3 cases, that could be up to $90,000 of damages. But at minimum, it's $2,250. If you can prove that the infringement was willful, the maximum damage amount increases all the way to $150,000 per infringement. And I read a court case recently where a company that's developing website software for veterinary clinics used some images from a well-known provider of stock photographs without permission, and the use was willful. I assume it's because they removed a copyright protection notice, and the judge awarded over $300,000 in damages because it was willful. So kind of a big deal. There is another circumstance. If the defense successfully proves innocent infringement, the statutory limit can be lowered down to $200 per infringement. This is a pretty common defense people use. They claim they didn't know that the image was copyrighted, even though every photograph taken in the United States is automatically copyrighted when the button is pushed. The best way to protect against that is make sure you have a watermark or even the full copyright notice on the front of the photograph, at minimum embedded in your file as well. Even then, the lowest that the court can award is $200. If you are eligible to file for statutory damages because you registered in a timely way, you may also file for recovery of your attorney fees. And that's the bigger deal. Even if the court only awards you $200, but you're not out any money because they have to pay your attorney fees, it might make it worthwhile. And in fact, I would assume that any good attorney that they hired would be smart enough to realize it's quicker to settle than go all the way to court. Bottom line, if a work is not registered, it will be difficult to win a large enough claim to make the legal action worthwhile, unless the infringement is egregious, which means you can prove that they made a lot of money or that your normal fee would have been a lot of money, or the infringing company is quite large and should have known better. In this case, most likely when your attorney contacts them, they're going to want to settle right away because a large company really should know better than to use copyrighted photographs without finding who the copyright holder is. So now that you understand that, you have to be the one that determines if it's worth your time and effort to register and maintain your copyrights. So if somebody does infringe, you have a decent shot at gaining some kind of a appropriate award from the court. You also can decide what images need to be registered. You don't have to register every image you shoot. I only register the ones that I put on my website because nobody's ever going to get to the other ones. There are a few misconceptions that maybe I can go over before I end this video, just so that you understand a little bit more about the registration process. First of all, most people think it's pretty expensive to register their photographs. I know I always did. I thought it would cost, $10, $20 per photograph. So to register 300 photographs, it'd be, several $1,000s. Most people think it takes a lot of time, and obviously to fill out all the paperwork for each photograph one at a time, if you have several hundred or even 20 or 30, would be pretty time consuming. I think most people think this is the case. And based on those two things, they think there's little to gain because after all, the odds of somebody copying your photograph is pretty small. Depends on what you do and where your images are available. And a lot of times, even the ones they copy are so small, they really couldn't do anything with them. Now that's changing because computational software is getting to the point using AI that they can take a pretty bad image and make it much, much larger than we used to be able to do even a few years ago. But anyway, let's talk about these misconceptions. As far as expensive, you can register 750 photographs for $55. Now, there are some limits to that, and we'll talk about that in the registration video. But most of the time, you're registering a fairly large number of photographs at the same time for a single fee of $55. So it's really not that expensive. And in fact, if you register 750, that comes out to be under 8 cents a piece. It only takes about an hour the first time you do this. Once you understand the process, I think it's even faster. And as I mentioned, the follow-up video goes through that complete process step by step. It's actually pretty easy once you understand it. I know I was a little confused at first, and that's why I've decided to make this series of videos.
Well, that does it for this video. I hope I helped you understand why registering your photographs is a step you might want to consider. I encourage you to watch the full video I've done on copyright, because there's a lot more to it than just registration. I put the link in that video below. This is a video that's not on YouTube. It's on my Photogaholic website. And in a week or two, I will have a follow-up video on the exact process of going through registering your photographs. Once you understand it, it's pretty simple, and it should take me another week or two to get that done. So hopefully you're interested in watching that video as well. I'll put both of those links down there, in the description below. I'm kind of weird at this YouTube thing, pointing here and there. I don't know if I can get the hang of that or not. I certainly appreciate all those that have subscribed. I started making these videos for fun. I really have no intention of trying to make this a monetary thing, but I enjoy making them. And because I've found so many people have subscribed, I've decided I would make a few more. If you liked what I've done, hit that subscribe button and maybe even ring that bell on the bottom. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments below. Again, thanks for watching.